Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Hub meeting, the 3rd of December. Apologies for absence, please.
Thank you, Leader. Good afternoon, members. We've got an apology from Councillor Mann and an apology from Councillor Moody, who is dialing in remotely via the Teams link. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, item 2, declarations of interest. Councillor Jury, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can I declare an interest in item 8 on the agenda, the update on our economic development strategy and outcomes? The report mentions Business Information Point, which is a company that I work for, but the report is not about Business Information Point or agreeing any funding for Business Information Point. Whilst declaring an interest, I'm intending, with your approval, to present the report and participate in the vote on the one decision that we do have to make on that paper.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jury. Okay, Mr. Fairbairn.
Absolutely fine.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any declarations? No? Okay, moving on. Items requiring urgent attention, Mr. White.
We have no items. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Confirmation of minutes, pages 1 to 6. Does anybody have any comment or query on them? No? Right, noted. Thank you. Item 5, public questions.
There are no public questions. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Right, moving to item 6, the Hub Forward Plan. As you will all see, it is rather busy and very full. We're looking at some of the January items going forward, and we realise there is 2 full pages and a bit. So the Chief Executive and I have had a discussion that we will take all of the financial papers together, not in one, but they will all be sectioned together within the agenda instead of all over the place. And then we will work through the agenda as best we can. We will be leaving out, in all probability, where's it gone? Is the, there was something about housing on here that was going to come off. Anyway, there's one that's potentially going. And the other one we may move is the alcohol public space protection orders, if we haven't got the details from there. Oh, the private sector housing update was the other one that's possibly going to be removed. The rest of them have got dates that we have to adhere to be able to go through them. March, for some reason, seems a bit slower, so a couple of them may move to there. Does anyone else have any queries about any of them? Councillor Jury.
Thank you, Leader. Can I just raise a query about the alcohol public space protection order, which we've kicked down the road already, I think, and my understanding is that the community and the police are keen that this order should be looked at and considered, and I just wonder whether there might be space, even if we have to put another meeting in, to make sure that we have a look at that.
I will pass you over to Councillor Elliott, the lead member.
Thank you. Yes, so originally the paper was deferred, you were quite right, because there wasn't enough evidence within the paper. Then the paper was reissued and there was still not really any hard and fast evidence in it. And unfortunately, although there is some evidence from a consultation that was done over the summer holidays, over a month from the end of July last summer, it was very poorly responded to. It was tiny numbers of people. And so it was felt that it was expected that the police would put forward some more evidence. And I've now been put in touch with Tom Otley, who's in charge of sort of community policing. I haven't met with him yet because I was away last week at a funeral, but I will be meeting with him because I really want this to be properly debated with sufficient evidence. So clearly, if there is sufficient evidence by the 28th of January, then we can go ahead with that. But I think we're in a slightly difficult position because there was such a scant response to the consultation, and there hasn't been a thorough consultation with neighbourhood groups. It was just with individual members of the public. And so, and it's quite a large extension of the existing provision. I think if it was just rubber stamping the Tavistock Meadows, then that's well established, but it's a really major thing that we're agreeing to. So it feels important that we get the evidence base right. So it's not to prejudge the discussion, but that's why we need to make sure we've got the evidence there.
Neil, sorry, Councillor Jury, would you like to come back?
Thank you, Councillor, and it's reassuring to know that we're working on it and that it's being given its the due process is carrying through. Thank you.
Have you set up another date for a meeting with Sergeant Otley, or is...
So I need to just email him and get something in place, but there's no reason that that can't happen in the next few days. So, yeah.
Right, thank you for that. Any other questions on the forward plan? No? Okay. So if we move to item 7, the Integrated Performance Management Report from July to November. We're recognising in this report the positive progress in delivering against actions in the adopted plan, and we're going to note the high-level summary of the key operational performance and strategic risk profile of the council. Does anyone have any questions, please? I'd like to point out to everyone that we do have Mr. Hawke here, the lead officer. No questions? None online? Right. Mr. Hawke, would you like to add anything to that, please?
I think just to say, Leader, that on the whole, positive progress. A significant amount of the actions are on track. A large number are complete, and a handful slightly off track that we are closely monitoring with you and lead members. I think overall, as I said, positive progress. Operational key performance on track, and we took a deep dive into the key performance indicators to overview and scrutiny, because this document is a high-level overview of how we're doing against the council plan. It's the sort of top layer of our performance management process. Just to really highlight some of the spend, because I think there was I certainly had a query from a lead member as to why some of the spend is off track and is purely timing of delivery. Some of the projects, so for example, we're forecasting an underspend on our climate and biodiversity theme. That's not because we're not progressing with plans. It's just because we set aside £50,000 to secure some land that the opportunity hasn't arisen. So we're still progressing with a whole host of projects, but there are some variances in the finances that are purely timing. And that just means that where we can, that funding will be there to continue to deliver projects beyond the end of this financial year or go back into our revenue reserves.
Any questions or comments, please? Councillor Mott.
Thank you. As Mr. Hawke has brought that up, can I ask what this land would look like? Are we looking at purchasing land that we can put against the BNG, for example, and use the credits for that? Or are we looking for another parcel of land where we use it for regenerative, in much the way we did with the other parcels of land that we owned?
Would you like me to address?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Councillor Mott. Yes, so the legislative framework shifted a little bit since when we previously looked at this with our own land. We concluded that natural regeneration was the right way to hit our council targets, and I believe it still is the case. Now that we have BNG, the idea is to both, if the opportunity arises anyway, to secure funding, gear in other funding through the Plymouth and South Devon Community Forest, if it's possible, so that's DEFRA funding. So take a bit of our money, add a lot more of somebody else's, secure a larger swathe of land, and then also look to have biodiversity, because it has to, that's a good thing in and of itself, but then also do the baseline surveys and then grow the right species, so species-rich grassland, trees, all of the above, which can then be sold off speculatively to help people offset their B&G requirements at some point in the future. So that creates this lovely virtuous circle, which sounds great, but I haven't managed to do it yet.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brooke. Right, if we can move forward then with the recommendations as set out on the screen, that I've already read out. So I will propose those. Do I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second.
Thank you. Any debate, anybody? Councillor Jury.
Thank you, Leader. Well, very welcome report, I think, very interesting report. Really good to see progress being made across the board, really, in terms of plans. I suppose we always come across this sort of getting towards the end of the year and just making sure that we have spent everything that's been allocated. And I suppose one weighs that up against not spending for spending's sake. So really good to see the progress that's being made, and I'm also very welcome that the strategic risks are showing no change as well. So noted that part of the report too. So thank you to everybody involved.
That's a big thank you to all of you, Councillor Jury, because you're all the portfolio holders who feed in your information to Mr. Hawke. So it's a pat on the back to all of us. So, but thank you for your comments, Councillor Jury. Any other debate or comments? We could, well, we're only really noting and recognising, but we'll see hands, so please, everyone. Those in favour? Thank you very much.
Recognised and noted. Thank you, Leader.
Right, if we could now move over to Councillor Jury, who's going to give us an update on our economic development strategy and outcome. And I believe Mr. Shears is also in the room. There's space to join Councillor Jury. Mr. Shears is our Head of Place and Economy.
Thank you, Leader. So, councillors, the main part of the paper that is in front of you deals with progress in allocating and overseeing grant funding from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and the Rural England Prosperity Fund. I think it's a really nice spin-off in a way that this activity that the economy team has been undertaking has spread the remit and influence of that team, and we're now starting to see, rather pleasingly, businesses approaching the council often as their first point of inquiry when they have problems that they're looking to try and solve. I'd like to, if I may, pull out a few highlights from the report. The UK Shared Prosperity Fund has enabled us to fund a range of projects supported by capital grants through the Rural England Prosperity Fund. More than 30 grant applications have been approved to a mix of business and community groups covering the adoption of agri-tech, clean diversification, implementing decarbonisation plans and engaging in community resilience. Projects include creating a local cycling and walking infrastructure plan and a contribution to the delivery of the West Devon Transport Hub, ensuring that project can maximise active and inclusive travel options. We've also carried out strategic business visits to key businesses in the borough, with visits undertaken with Cladco, Forth Glade and Altilium. More visits are planned. We've engaged in providing help for local farms through a regenerative farming project, which has seen significant take-up from farmers and has won a Rural Business Award. There's a very interesting case study in the document which I'd like to highlight to you about Hayes Meadow Organic, which has diversified into manufacturing cosmetics based on what would otherwise be a waste product of animal fats. Supporting the Oakhampton Regeneration Project and helping the local business community to successfully introduce a business improvement district in the town. And also providing £225,000 to support the installation of solar panels, EV charging points, and the purchase of electric vehicles by local businesses. In addition to that, we've been supporting local community energy groups to enhance the range of projects that they deliver. I'm sure we all agree that's a very worthy range of projects that we've undertaken and has been very helpful to a number of businesses and community groups in the borough. Second part of the paper highlights the opportunity to utilise £100,000 of currently unallocated capital budget to invest in the provision of solar panels at Kilworthy Park. This has arisen as a result of the availability of funds within the scheme, which are unlikely now to be spent within the specified timescale. The investment will align with a number of our targets to reduce the council's emissions and those of our tenants at Kilworthy Park, whilst providing a significant reduction in expenditure, which will help our budget situation, and payback on this investment within 4 years. So overall, I'd like to commend the recommendations within this paper to the meeting and hope that members will be able to support these aspects of the proposals. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jury. Are there any questions, Councillor Jury, please? Councillor Elliott.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting report, and there's clearly a lot of work that we've been able to do because of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. I just wonder if you can say any more about the strategic business visits. It would just be very interesting to hear about what the challenges are that businesses are facing, because I think that can inform other parts of our strategy. I realise this question might be a little bit early in the process because you're clearly going to do more visits, but if there's any flavour you can give us of the challenges that are being faced, that would be really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. No, I don't think it's too early to ask those sorts of questions. Obviously, we've conducted a number of visits across even within the 3 that I mentioned, a range of different businesses at different stages in their lifestyle, in their life. In their project life, if you like. I think the main thing that came out of them was the preparedness of those businesses to engage with the council, and that they felt as though it gave them an opportunity to be listened to and gain some connections within the council. And I think that's helped people on both sides of this debate. I think from our perspective, it's very interesting to see what draws bigger businesses into the borough and how we can influence that, as we did particularly with Forthglade. And I think also with the Atilium project, just seeing something that is at the cutting edge of current technology that has benefited from some significant innovation grants from the government, and to see how they are spending that and what they're doing, and potentially what that means for the area and the region in future when that technology really starts to take off. So I think overall it gave us a nice feeling that we'd made that sort of contact, we're having those decisions. I don't think there were particularly any complaints or moans from people towards the council and what the council should be doing, but rather an appreciation that we were reaching out and trying to forge those contacts. And I think that, if nothing else, that's the important aspect that you get from this exercise. I don't know whether either Mr. Shears or Mr. Brooke would like to raise anything else that they encountered.
I think to follow up what Councillor Jury has said, that there's definitely been an appreciation on behalf of the businesses that we've given them the attention and actually come out to see them and to listen to their views of the area and that sort of thing. In terms of, you asked specifically about sort of issues, and I think that there's things like improved access to employees for some businesses, and we've in the background, we've been doing work around that. So, for example, in Oakhampton, we've been supporting the development of a jobs fair that local businesses are now engaging with. And obviously, we've been developing the bid in Oakhampton. So, and we're likely to have strategic business representation on the board of the bid for the town from the industrial estates, which I think is a really nice thing to have for Oakhampton. And also further to that, with Altilium, we've been able to support them to access further government funding. So they're now looking at the potential growth of their site in Tavistock, which I think is really good for the local population. And so they are having an actual impact on the communities and on the businesses that we're going to see.
That's really interesting. Thank you.
I'll just add briefly to that. I think there's a sort of philosophical positive purpose to them as well, which is that although there may be specifics that come from meeting a business in our patch, and often that's the case, as Chris has set out, it's the fact that we work in an ever evolving policy context. So the council's priorities evolve, the legal frameworks within which the businesses operate evolves. So if you don't know your place, your business leaders, your business staff, and the products and the services they offer, you can't ever join the dots. And so I think it's incumbent on councils, where they have the capacity to do it, to try and strengthen those networks in a constructive way, because it means we are all more likely to, in our case, structure our UK SPF funding, if we get it next year, around what we believe to be the need. It means we can engage with Devon County Council with their skills and economic development teams to make sure that the children of the borough are educated in the right direction, or if there's skills gaps that we try and plug them. So it's not always about the tangibles that come from the meetings. This is just my experience. It's about that breadth of understanding. So I think that's what it's really helped with.
Thank you. And I would have to say, having been on all 3 visits and the 3 farm visits, they have all been hugely beneficial. One of them, for example, Fourth Glade, they asked us, if we could help recruit younger people, hence the jobs fair, etc. And they've also asked us if we could ask GWR if they could amend the train times by 15 minutes at the start of the day and at the end of the day, because of their staff being able to use trains, etc. So we've had positive impacts, and we're hoping to be able to deliver really good outcomes. I'm just curious as to where we may be going next. So who's going to reveal the secrets?
I can say that we may be discovering the secret as to how Devon makes it so creamy. So.
Oh, that sounds good. I can think of a couple for that one. So, yes. So, Councillor Edmonds, did I see your hand waver?
You did. Thank you, Leader. Question around the underspend. Other applications pending that will use this money, or is there still an unallocated proportion of this money? If so, I think the closing date for applications from memory is the 13th of December. Is there and there's obviously an end date for this funding. If we go over that, do we have to send money back, or can we roll it over? And what's the chances of fresh funds coming through next year to continue this excellent work?
Taking that, Councillor Jury, Mr. Shears or Mrs. Buckle? Do we have a choice?
I'm going to have a go at taking it.
Go on then.
Okay, so the short answer, I think, is no, that money can't be rolled over, but that's one of the reasons that we're looking at some other investments, so that when we get the next tranche of funding, we can allocate that appropriately. There are some plans with regards to a couple of high-value projects within the borough that we're looking to allocate money to. And I think, as a general rule, we just do not want to be sending much of this money back. We'd like it to be spent positively and appropriately within the borough. So we've been talking this morning about a couple of areas that we're going to be offering those funds, potentially offering those funds to, subject to an appropriate application. And we were also talking about a funding platform that's available in the region that was set up by the LEP and is still has funding current at the moment, called the Southwest Access to Finance, where we're going to be posting some of these items as well, and just see if we can get some last minute interest. But I'm pretty sure that we've got plans afoot to account for most of the money, but perhaps Mr. Shears would like just to confirm what I've said.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to give you the reassurance that currently we've got about 16k of applications that are already pending for the review after the 13th of December. But we've got, even after we take out the funding for these other measures, that still leaves about 100k towards grants for the rest of this month. So I think we are pushing the grants. It's been interesting to see the reception, but those who have taken up the grants have said that they've had a really good experience of going through the programme. I should point out that for community groups, they are able to access 100% funding, so they don't have to find match funding for their projects. But we've had a good mix of businesses and community groups, and I'd say there's probably over the course of the programme, there's been sort of one or two that we've not been able to help because they've not been able to identify something that isn't revenue, and these grants are unfortunately capital. But you know, nearly everyone who's applied in the West Devon area has been able to get through the programme, and we've been able to work with them closely to align their project with what we need in terms of outcomes for government.
Is there a minimum amount application about? Is it 10,000 or did I?
The maximum application is for 10,000. We prefer applications of sort of over a couple of thousand plus, but we've got some flexibility on that depending on the needs of the organisation.
Councillor Moody, you'd like to come in, please.
Thank you very much, Leader. I'm sorry I'm not there in person, but I'm sort of croaking on. Just have a question about the community economic plans. We now know that Oakhampton's got a bid, Tavistock has a bid. Some years ago in Tavistock, the economic committee chaired by Councillor Oxford at the time, many years ago, the council did a baseline survey, and I noticed under community economic plans, there is a reference to data analysis to establish each town's baseline economic position. We used to do a health of our town survey. Are we planning to do that again within this project, or if not, why not?
Cheers. Oh, Councillor Jury.
I'll have a go at that. I think, thank you, Councillor Moody, for your question. My understanding of the community economic plans is that they will touch on that sort of information and gather data, but are probably at a slightly higher level of sophistication than has been done in the past. So we're accessing data that's available. And if we think about I'm trying to think what they're called, the parish housing reports that we've been party to and which were so well received, it's going to be a kind of business equivalent of that in some ways, if I can describe it as that. And I'm hoping my colleagues will agree that that is the case. So it's going to be drawing on data from a lot of different places and putting that into an easily accessible format that will be hopefully of use to businesses and to us as policymakers. So hopefully my colleagues will correct me if I'm wrong or agree that I'm kind of roughly in the right ballpark. And we are now freeing up the capacity to be able to start doing that on towns in West Devon. So we'll see some action on that front soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Jury. And I just wondered whether, because we have this funding, and I know that the granular analysis that we used to do, particularly in Tavistock, was very, very right down to the number of visitors and the spend per visitor and all the rest of it. I just think that it might have been helpful to have that in this programme, but if there is something coming further down the line that we can use as a council, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
If I may, so we do get information around the tourism data. I think down to the level of granularity that you're talking about, Councillor Moody. But our economic analyst in my team, George, is doing some great work at the moment, pulling together profiles and using a system called Power BI to display that information in a meaningful way to our communities. I'd say that. Without wanting to reference, it's the equivalent of Voldemort, isn't it, to mention South Hams in these meetings? But we can say in between these four walls, obviously, that we've been using South Hams as the guinea pig for community economic plans, so that we get it right when we come to West Devon. And Nita Jaram, who has been working very closely on the bid work in Oakhampton, is now in a position where she's able to start stepping back from that, because we've got the board of directors and what have you set up for the bid. And so she's currently partnershiped with a lady called Laura, who's leading on the work in South Hams, and is doing the community economic plan in Totnes, so that she gets an understanding of the process and what have you, and is more involved in that. But we're anticipating that she will be leading on the community economic plan work for West Devon when we get to that.
Thank you very much for that. That's really helpful. I'm looking forward to getting that data and hope that we can help West Devon's communities based on that information, and also not just the communities, but the businesses as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I expect this to be letting Mr. Shears off the hook and putting Mr. Brooke firmly on it. Under 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, we're talking about the panels, or additional panels rather, for this building. And I'm just curious on the figures, please. It's saying that the return on the investment for this is going to be 4 years, and that the ongoing revenue benefit is going to be approximately 25,000. Bearing in mind this is for additional solar panels, can I just ask, please, are we still spending 25,000 over and above what is produced by the panels already? Because it just seems to be remarkable that we are going to get a return in 4 years on that 100,000 based on additional panels.
Book the sunshine, Councillor Mott.
It's a really good question, and I wonder whether Mr. Brooke has that information at his fingertips.
Yeah, it's just because the usage of KP is quite high. So if you're thinking about a domestic system that we'd all be familiar with, some of it, but most of it goes back to the grid. So you pay back typically 6 years, isn't it? Maybe a bit less if it's raining. Here, it's like 100% utilisation, because the building is occupied during the day. We use loads of the power, so it's like a direct wire equivalent, and so the payback's a lot shorter. That's all it is. If you want to see the full solar modelling, we can have a little chat afterwards.
She's booked. Oh.
I'm just struggling to understand the figures, Leader, based on the fact that we've already got panels, and I'm struggling to see how we are getting such a quick return on it, and the fact that we are decreasing our emissions by a further 13%. I would have been happier if we had more information in the report, as was originally requested.
Are they more modern panels, which is why... Oh, here we go. Here comes the scientist. Welcome, Mr. Powell.
Hi, Leader. Well, hi, members. Sorry, a bit of a croaky voice. I can add a little bit more detail if it helps around the carbon savings at Councillor Mott. Essentially, it will be about a 7-tonne saving, which equates to 13% of our actual Scope 2 emissions. Kilworthy Park uses 56% of our Scope 2 emissions, which is the emissions we basically emit carbon emissions as a result of purchasing electricity. So those figures are correct. The actual new array will be 51 kilowatts peak. So in optimum conditions, it will produce 51 kilowatts per hour of energy. And that will substantially reduce the cost of buying electricity from the grid, essentially. So the numbers do stack up. Does that help at all, or would you like some further information?
It does. I'm sorry to labour the point, but I appreciate, I'm not against the purchase of the solar panels. I'm just trying to work, balance the figures and the benefit, because my understanding was that we purchased our electricity from a carbon neutral source. So how are we therefore making this much savings on our purchase of electricity when we're already getting that from a carbon neutral source?
We purchase our. Oh, sorry. Can I? Sorry, it's different with the thing. Yeah, we purchase ours from a green source, which the difficulty with proving whether it's net zero is that it's to do with what's called REGO certificates and the repurchase of certificates. What will happen over time is, as the grid is decarbonised, so as more and more renewables connect to the grid, so the carbon footprint of any electricity we purchase will go down. But that's not going to happen for a considerable period of time. By doing this and generating our electricity, which we 100% know is net zero on location, reducing any transmission losses and so on, that's why we can prove that it is a 13% reduction in our Scope 2 emissions.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Councillor Jury, behave, please. He was asking if we wanted further elaboration. Councillor Jury was spuddling it. But thank you very much. Right, okay, come on group, let's get together. Right, the recommendation is, Councillor Jury.
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to propose the two recommendations on this report, which can be found on page 33. If I could have a seconder, please.
Happy to second. Would anybody like any debate? Oh, Councillor West.
Sorry, Leader. Just interesting, Councillor Jury, we talk about the bid in Oakhampton, which is I welcome, but I note that there were a number of objections or people saying, well, we didn't know enough about the bid and we didn't vote for it. Do you feel that that situation has improved? Are people more on board than they possibly were?
Thank you. Yes, you're right. There were some quite public objections to the result of the ballot. And we have assured everybody previously that the, well, I suppose, let me start at the beginning. Firstly, I think we have to remember that the Business Improvement District is a community-led initiative, and it was brought forward by a group of businesses within the community. The Borough Council has supported that engagement because we, I think, have seen the benefits of having a bid, particularly in Tavistock, and the ability that gives us to talk to a group of businesses direct and support those businesses directly. The bid was progressed in exactly the way that the bid should have been progressed. Information was made available, and some significant efforts were made to engage with all of those who would be participating in the bid. There was then a properly administered vote, which was done in accordance with all of the rules surrounding the introduction of a bid, and that vote achieved the appropriate majorities, both in terms of numbers and in terms of rateable value. There were, as you say, there was some dissension. I think we and the bid have tried to address that dissension and talk to people directly. and I think the noise has abated a little. I mean, we're still at a position where we're forming the bid board, and that board will then take the bid forward, and there will be more public discourse as that goes on. We're very keen to get a range of businesses represented on that board, and that's the place, I think, for future discussion. I would say that the budget for the bid levy is around about £130,000 per annum, and my latest information is that £100,000 that has been collected already. So I think that gives you an indication of the level of interest there is, particularly amongst some of the bigger businesses, in making sure that the bid gets off the ground, is successful, and is able to do what it has set out to do, and to develop its policies to suit and support the businesses that are in the town. So I think, you know, I note your question, but I think things have moved on. If there continues to be some debate, that's healthy, I think, and I think the proof now will be in the bid delivering for the bid levy payers.
I have to say, I'm really impressed with that figure. That's nearly double what we raise in Tavistock. So, yes. Right. If there's no further debate, can I see all those in favour, please?
It's unanimous, those recommendations. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. And that is the end of the meeting. Thank you very much, everybody.